Hi, my name is Denise, and I'm here today to make the best sugar cookies. Well, that's actually according to my kids. They call them the world's best sugar cookies. And it's a really easy recipe, and it's just got a handful of ingredients, so let's get going. We're going to start by creaming our butter and some sugar together in a stand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer at home, you can definitely do this by hand or with a handheld mixer. Once it's, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that the butter should be at room temperature. Actually, all of the ingredients should be at room temperature. It makes it incorporate much faster and much more completely. So now that the butter's a little bit mixed, we're going to add the sugar gradually. What you're looking for is for the butter and the sugar to not just be fully incorporated, but also to get a little bit of lightness to the butter, both in color and in texture. So it should be just a little bit lighter yellow and just a little bit airier. We're all set to keep going with our next ingredients. We've got 3 large egg yolks. It's really important that you use the right size egg yolk for your recipe, because too small and you won't have enough liquid, and too large and it'll be too runny. We have 2 tablespoons of pure vanilla extract. Again, it's really important to go with the good stuff. Buy the pure, don't get the imitation. It really makes a difference in the final cookies. I also have 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Specifically, this is diamond crystal kosher salt. And if a recipe calls for kosher salt, definitely use the kind specified and kosher salt, because iodized salt, if you use that same volume of iodized salt, it would be way too salty. And if you use a different brand of kosher salt, some of the crystals are chunkier or finer, and it really makes a difference in the final product. So those are our next ingredients. Try to go 1 yolk at a time if you can. We are all set to add our flour. I have 1 more cupful to measure, and actually you need 3 3/4 cups of flour in this recipe. I wanted to show you the proper technique for measuring flour. Flour is never packed like brown sugar might be. It's sifted into a measuring cup and then leveled off like this. Again, if you packed it, you could have a huge variation in how much flour you just put into your recipe. One way I like to add my flour is using a clean manila folder. It actually helps keep the mess down and angles it right into the bowl. That's how we really do it. This is also good if you sift your flour. You can sift it right onto there and then put it straight in. So make sure you start out on slow, or you'll get a big poof of flour. Now, whenever you add the flour, you just want to mix until it's just incorporated. Don't go overboard. So keep an eye out for when the flour is becoming really incorporated into the mixture, and then stop. And then what you can do is lower your bowl, and you can scrape down the sides a little bit just to make sure that you've got it all evenly done. And then I would put it on for just a couple more turns. Go slow on the speed for this. That's exactly what we're looking for. So if you take a look at this, it's nice and together, but it's not overly mixed. You don't want to develop the protein in the flour, or it'll become really, it'll turn the dough into, instead of being a nice crispy cookie, it'll be rather chewy, if you think about what mixing in bread does. So I'm all set to roll out the dough. This is actually a technique I use for a lot of different kinds of doughs. I use it for pie dough, I use it for cookie dough, and what I like about it is you don't have to use any extra flour, and you don't get your counter all sticky, and more importantly, it's really much easier to handle the dough. You just need 2 big pieces of plastic wrap, or plastic film, and you plop your dough right in the middle, and you take your second piece and you put it right on top. I used about half the amount of the dough, so I'm going to make about 2 sheets out of that one batch. By the way, the batch makes about 2.5 pounds of dough, and that's about 40 big cookies, or maybe 60 medium size or 80 small. And here's where you get your rolling pin and you just get rolling. I want to take the dough to about a thickness of 1/4 inch. And the reason for that thickness is it allows the cookies to bake pretty quickly. If the cookies are too thin, they'll burn in certain spots, and if they're too thick, they actually won't cook through, and the centers will be soft and the exteriors will be crunchy. So go for about 1/4 inch, and you don't have to do this too neatly. You're just going to probably stamp some cookie shapes out of it, so the edges can be a little messy. This dough can be refrigerated for up to 3 days, but it lasts in the freezer at least 3 months. And so that's why I like to make this dough in large batches so that I always have a sheet available. It's really great because all you have to do now to make sugar cookies is to just chill it for about an hour in the fridge. And once you take it out, it's much easier to work with the dough. If I put a cookie cutter in this right now, it would stick to the cookie cutter. So I'm going to put it in the refrigerator, and then we'll get stamping some cookies. So my dough's been chilling for about an hour in the refrigerator. I'm going to take the top part off, but I'm going to leave the bottom part on. That's going to help with the process of stamping out the cookies. If you froze your dough, you want to take it out and leave it on your counter for about 10 minutes, depending on how completely rock hard it is. And just wait until it's a little bit flexible, like this, but not melty. So you can see how I can move it, but I can still... So now when I put my cookie on and stamp it, here's how I use the plastic. I pick it up, and I help peel it off, and then I can just transfer it right onto the baking sheet. This allows you to keep really clean edges on your cookies, which is a problem with a lot of home sugar cookies, is the dough is so warm that when you go to work with it, you have these beautiful detailed cutters, but by the time you actually use them on your slightly warmed dough, you don't even get to see the pretty details. Another good thing about this cookie dough recipe is that the cookies hold their shape in the oven, so when they come out, they'll look like this. They won't look like, you know, a pile of circles. So we're all set to bake these. I'm going to put them in a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. If you have multiple baking trays in your oven, it's definitely going to add to the cooking time. What you want to do is probably halfway through the cooking process, swap the trays, you know, whatever was on the top, move to the bottom, because they will brown unevenly depending where the heat source in your oven is. So just keep them moving and keep an eye on them. You know that they're done when they are sort of a light golden brown on top. The edges will be darker. The whole cookie should have a lighter, sort of a light brown to it. They actually don't taste bad at dark. In fact, some people like them darker and crunchier, but you know, a little too dark and they're not going to taste very good. So let's get these in the oven. So the cookies are done. They bake for about 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and transfer them to a wire cooling rack. They need to cool for about 10 or 15 minutes before you can ice them. And you can see while they were in the oven, they got that nice golden brown color that we're looking for. And you can also see how they held their shape nicely from the unbaked ones. So once the cookies are all cooled, you're fine to serve them as is, or you can certainly decorate them. Be sure to watch my other video on royal icing or making cookie bouquets.